Shabbos, everyone. We're in the midwinter here in Miami. That's why I'm wearing a sweater. I don't usually wear sweaters. So two brothers were traveling in the desert. After a long day in the desert, they pitch the tent. They go to sleep. Middle of the night, one wakes up the other and says, "What do you see?" He says, "Oh." He starts describing all different stars that he sees and gives the whole explanation what each star is. And then he asks his brother, "What do you see?" He says, "I see that you're an idiot." He says, "Why?" He says, "Because you don't realize that someone stole our tent." The words we use, how we perceive things. Wow. Let's talk about someone that we see in our Torah that had a tremendous perception and saw things in life a certain way. The story of Joseph. So in this week's Torah portion, it comes to the climax of the story. To remind everyone that the stories of the last few weeks, that Joseph's mother died when he was very young. His own brothers, flesh and blood, sold him out to the Egyptians. Imagine selling him out to the Talibans. And he was brought to Egypt. And over in Egypt, he was worked in the house of Potiphar. And then he was accused of doing something he did not do. And they threw him in a pit. And he was there for 13 years. And then eventually became the viceroy of Egypt. And now his brothers finally come to him face to face to meet with him. What happens? His brothers come, and it says he cried, and then he couldn't hold his emotions. It's the whole story how he revealed himself to his brothers. And then finally comes the moment when Yosef, after 22 years, being sold by his brothers, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, says, "Please come close to me." When they approached him, he said, "I am Joseph, your brother. It is me who you sold into Egypt. And now don't be distressed. Nor for God sold me, for it was preserved, if it was God that actually sent me here into Egypt." This is shocking. Imagine, your brothers sold you to the Egyptians, like they're the Taliban. And because of that, you were ripped away from your father. And then you went to Egypt and you were thrown into prison for 13 years. Imagine, eventually you meet your siblings that did that to you. You would want to throw them in jail. You may want to kill them. You may want to do who knows what. Or be angry at them at least and say, "How dare you be the ones that sold me out to Egypt?" And have the anger. But that's not what happens. What did Joseph do? When Joseph reveals himself to his brothers, instead of rage and revenge, Joseph ends up calming his mortified brothers. Imagine how shocked they were. "Oh my God, this is you we sold?" He tells them, "Don't be distressed." And Joseph is trying to calm them down and forgive them. How ironic. The perpetrators have become the victims. They're the ones feeling sad and miserable, and the victim is the one who's soothing the perpetrators. So one may wonder, maybe Joseph was so detached from reality, he was a very cold person, nothing got him, but it's not so. The Torah describes over 8 times with Joseph crying. So Joseph was a very emotional person and was a very caring person. So how was he in a moment like this? He is the one remains happy human being when one has been robbed of love, nurture, warmth, and freedom that are the basic right of every human on earth. And how is he the one telling his brothers not to be sad? Wouldn't we love to learn how to do this in our own life? My dear friends, the answer is how we tell a story. The words we choose to tell a narrative determines the meaning of the story to us. The same exact story can be told by 2 people in 2 ways, like the story of the tent in the beginning. And the story becomes different for each of them. The facts remain the same, but the way they experience, internalize, and interpret the facts varies on the words they use to describe the narrative. Let's review the words that Joseph used. What did Joseph say? Joseph tells his brothers, "You sold me, but," and I quote him, "but God sent me." God has sent me, I'm quoting the words from Joseph, "God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival in the land and to sustain you for a special deliverance. It is not you who sent me here, but God has made me Pharaoh's vice and master of the entire government and ruler of all. These are the words that Joseph used. Let me repeat it. Joseph said, you sold me, but God sent me. One word changed in the narrative. From sold to sent. He says, I was not sold, I was sent. You might think that you have sold me, but in truth, I was sent. This is how Joseph chose to tell and experience the story. What is the difference between sold and sent? It's very simple. Sold, when you're sold, you're a passive victim. Slaves are sold, houses are sold, companies are sold, subjects are sold, objects are sold. When you are sent, you're an active participant. You are chosen to be sent somewhere because you possess the resources and skills to accomplish certain things, to fulfill the mission you were sent in. So this is how Joseph told himself the narrative of his life. And this is what he shared with his brothers at this moment. His brothers might have tried to sell him and have indeed done just that. But in Joseph's mind, nothing happens in this world without God's approval. So it was God who was sending him somewhere. Did Joseph feel pain? Yes. Tears? Yes. Despair? No. Paralysis? No. Joseph was never a victim of his circumstances. As strange as life's curveballs were, Joseph was inculcated with the awareness that God has sent him wherever he was in order to fulfill a mission. Whether in a pit, or as a slave, or as a prisoner, he was God's ambassador, chosen by God to accomplish something in these circumstances. And when he became the most powerful person in the world, he still felt the same. He was a messenger of God. The circumstances may have changed. The software may have changed, but the hardware stays the same. He remained the same throughout all the years and experience. He was a shliach, an ambassador of God. Each life has its struggles. Many of us have been hurt, sometimes badly. The fact cannot always be changed, but the way we tell this story can make all the differences. Our versions of our life's narrative determines our perception of what happened to us and what to do with it. Just like Joseph, we all end up in a pit once in a while. We all feel like slaves at some point or another. And we spend time in one type of prison or another. But it's up to us to decide. Listen to this, this is so important. It's up to us to decide whether we have been sold into these situations or perhaps we've been sent there to bring healings to ourselves and to the world around us, to bring light to a place of darkness, the purpose of all existence. People may have hurt you. Situations may have disappointed you. Circumstances may have been unfair. But remember, Joseph said, it is not you who sent me here, but God. It's not people, events, and circumstances that create dark world where there is always a potential danger, but it's God who created it. No one sold you anywhere. God sent you into many interesting places because you are empowered to fulfill your special mission there. You know, they say the story between the Breslov Rebbe and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Breslov says why the Breslov Chassidim have long pace is because one day, if you end up in purgatory, the Rebbe is going to pull you out of Gehenna, of hell. They said by Lubavitcher Rebbe is different. If you end up in hell, he's going to give you an extra dollar and says, go find another Jew there and inspire him there. And this is how we have to do. We have, each of us, no matter where we are, we've been sent by God for a particular mission. And we should never look at it that we're slaves and we become paralyzed. But our mission is to change ourselves and change the environment and change every situation we may be in. As we're getting close to the end of the year 2020, let's always remember, 2020 is a very different year. But we could tell our children that we weren't a victim of 2020, but we were sent in the year 2020 to make a difference. The question at the end is, what 2020 did we live in? Shabbat Shalom.